Oh, all right, mother. I've been waking up angry for the past week. It's like I just get out of bed and I'm pissed off. But I think I got good reason. Well, I also think because it's transitioning into fall, the daylight's getting shorter, my little seasonal disorder thing is probably coming into play. But as you know, I've been messing around with this giant debacle, this house. And we keep finding this is the absolute worst mess I have ever seen or been in my life. And I made a list because I've been in a lot of them. I don't know why this keeps happening to me, but we collectively made the decision to bring in a forensic engineering construction specialist engineer, because I'm not an engineer. I like to think I know what I'm talking about, but that doesn't amount to shit really. So I've been talking to my buddy Randy, who's an engineer, and he confirmed that just about everything I was concerned about was legit. So we bring this other guy in, and that guy, I call him a pit bull because he was on top of his game. And we're just finding it's really indescribable, the stuff that we're finding. It's just not remotely correct. I went through, I guess it was last Friday, and this poor woman, she's got this vision for her front foyer and her stairs. She's got these photographs and all of she's done her due diligence. She's done her homework. She knows what she wants. She didn't get it. She didn't get it in any stretch of the imagination, which is sort of beside the point. The cosmetics and the architecture are one thing, but this other engineer said, you probably ought to just be sure make sure the stairs meet code. Which we probably should have checked that about a year and a half ago. But so I did. She's paid all this money for all this custom steel and all these laminated oak treads and special cut tempered glass, and those stairs will never ever pass code. I got one riser that's 8 inches, another riser that's 7 1/4, and then I got the last riser 6 1/2. Oh my God. All that shit's got to come out. We got several $1,000 5x5 custom order Italian marbles just cracking in half for no apparent reason. Well, I know why. Because they got the steel beams loaded incorrectly, not even welded. None of this shit was supposed to be welded to start off with. Went around. I was checking for a weld. And I started cutting these exploratory holes in the siding. And it was like a light bulb clicked off in my head. I said, what in the hell am I cutting into? You know, I wasn't quite sure, so I went in and checked the plans. And at least a third, the entire back half of the house is sided with the totally incorrect wrong product in the wrong color in the wrong place. So I started researching that some more. I told Hunter and Doobie, I said, I'm serious. I said, y'all sit down right now. I don't care what you're doing. And you research this Nichiha siding product, and you need to become experts on it. And they did. And they told me, Dad, I don't think this stuff's put on right. And I said, well, link me to the video so I know what the hell you're talking about, because I was worried about structure. So I watched the videos. 100% of her exterior siding product has been installed incorrectly. All of it. And the sad part is the shit that you needed to install it correctly is in a great big pile mound up in the woods where whoever just decided they weren't going to use it. And it's probably $5,000 to $7,000 worth of material up there in a giant heap. They just said, fuck it, we're not going to use it. All the windows, all those great big giant windows, they're installed wrong. It's a disaster. I feel so bad for that woman. I kept telling her, you got the right man on the job now, and we're going to fix it, and it's going to be great. And I still contend it will be, and I am going to fix it. But I didn't think really that I was going to have to basically dismantle the entire exterior and half the interior to correct a bunch of steel structure. Anyway, that got me thinking about all the messes I've been in. I made a little list. It's sort of an example about how all these fail-safes and inspections and engineers and all this shit we think we have into play to protect our investments and our interests is just a giant hoax. Well, I got a list of why. Anyway, you maybe remember back in the early 90s, I was working for my buddy Paul Holmberg, rest his soul. And we were doing all those Churchill revitalizations, working for the Housing Authority and whatever that. Some Housing Authority and somebody else. Architectural Review or some shit. But Paul and I are working on this house. I guess back in the middle 1800s, when they were building those homes, maybe it was earlier, I don't know. But they didn't pour footings. They would trench out to the approximate hard pan, and they would lay bricks, side by side, 2 or 3 bricks wide. And then they lay another course on top of that. They basically made a footing out of brick on the hard pan. And then they drop their mortar and build their foundation wall. Well, that wall, the front and the back wall were independent of each other, but the two side walls were party walls because they were row houses. They adjoined another house, shared the same footing. So the historical review board, which was not in connection with the building code and not in connection with the housing authority, they said that in order to do this project, we had to leave the entire front facade of the house and the roof, but the rest of the house could be gutted. Okay? So I went in there and I had made all these giant ganged up 2x4 posts. They might have been 10 or 12 thick. Found where the beams were in the roof. Jacked everything up and just ripped the entire interior of that house out. Both floors. It was nothing but a front wall and a roof. Front wall and roof. And everything else was supported by posts. And back in the day, those joists ran from foundation, sidewall foundation to sidewall foundation, because the houses were very long front to back, but very narrow. And they used, I don't know, 20 or 22 foot, I forget which, 2x whatever, rough cut. And I was like, dude, this is too far to span. You know, I guess it was the housing authority. You know, the housing authority would draw these little plans and details. And I'd look at it and, you can't do that. You know, none of it matched the building code. None of it, you know, the historical society wanted everything back the same way. It was a cluster. But I told Paul, I said, you know, we can't do that. We can't span that. We came up with this idea that we would, you know, put some footings or piers in the middle span so we could go 12 foot girder, 12 foot. Pretty standard stuff. Paul said, yeah, that's a great idea. Like I said, he's gone now, and he, you know, bless his soul, but he looked at the exterior walls, you know, and the way the footings were made back in 1820. And he came in one day with a couple of bags of sackcrete and some bricks, and he started making these footers, these piers, whatever. And I didn't think anything of it. I figured, you know, it wouldn't be done if someone hadn't approved it. So we build the house. Of course, they change. You got all these idiots designing this shit, and they're trying to take a 1800s house and turn it into a modern luxury row home, and they change the directions of the joists and beams and the rafters and the path of load. Nobody ever checked. They never got an engineer. I don't even know if they got it inspected, because I think all that was kind of a under the table scam anyway, just to revitalize the area. It was like there was just no oversight whatsoever. Just kind of do what you want, so long as it looked old on the outside, new on the inside. We built a house. I guess he's got a year warranty or something, and he calls me one day and says, Kevin, you can go back and you got some nail pops. I go back to that place, And I mean, it is mucked up. The stairs are all out of whack. Sheetrock popping all over the place. Just sheer cracks. What in the hell is going on? Cut a hole in the floor and crawled up underneath that place. Poor Paul's, all his footings or whatever you want to call it, the shit he'd stacked on the ground. Basically, stacked a bunch of cinder blocks on the ground. It's the best way to describe it. Put some mortar in it, but I went under there, and the way that thing was loaded up, it had blown all the mortar joints out. The thing, it must have sagged 1.5 to 2 inches. Nobody ever checked. This woman, she got this special loan from the housing authority, whatever. Spent a couple weeks underneath that place and still never got an engineer. Never got an inspection. But in the opposite direction, a buddy of Paul's, Connor McGee, he's dead now too. He hired me to replace the porches on the back. He had 3 condos, 3, I don't know how many units it was, but all the back porches were rotten. He hires me to go out there and replace them, so I'm replacing them. He doesn't get a permit. This inspector drives by one day and sees all this shit, debris sitting out in the yard, and he walks around back and sees me working on these porches. Puts a stop work order on me. So we gotta get a permit, which we do. And I'm putting the porches back based on the drawing that I guess I made, based on the design of the structure as it was, which was the design of all of Richmond. I mean, the entire city of Richmond, these back porches are, it's just like a little 5 by 8 porch with a stairwell hole in the other end of it. And you go down to the next porch, and then you go down to the next porch. And this was basically access. Really, what it was for was for, before they had refrigeration, it was for the guys delivering blocks of ice, because all these houses have these little cast iron refrigerator doors, and the guy would carry the ice up all these flights of stairs. You'd open the door and stick the block of ice in there. That's pretty much what it was for. But so I'm rebuilding it according to the drawings we submitted, which was the structure of its time, which was fine. But this guy comes out there for my framing inspection. And he's like, "Oh, no, we can't do that." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "Well, you need to get an X-ray machine out here and X-ray this footing to prove to me that there's rebar in the footing." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "No, I mean, you can't put all this load on this slab like that. I mean, I got to know there's rebar in there." I about lost my shit. I'm not getting an X-ray machine out here to prove to you there's rebar in a footing that's at least 100 years old. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but it doesn't matter. It's an existing footing. It stood for 100 years, and it's going to stand for another 100 years. He wouldn't let me slide. And I had I wouldn't call it a friendly relationship, but I had some experience with the head building inspector over there, and I called him. I said, "Dude, your little underling here is just giving me a raft of shit." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I explained to him the situation. And he came out there, and he looked at what I was doing, and he called the guy up and said, hey, we're not getting an x-ray machine. The guy's all been out of shape and catching an attitude, and we're just going to let him put it back the way it was, the way it's drawn. We're going to call it a day. That guy didn't like that shit. So that was one porch. I had 2 more to go. So I go over to the next porch, frame it down, frame it up. Same inspector comes out there again. Oh, no, you can't do this. What's the problem now? He said, well, this is considered a fire escape. And when you have a fire escape, you go to some other live load, commercial live load or something. Jeez, I said, what are you talking about now? He said, well, these, what was originally a 2x6 floor joist that spanned 5 foot. He wanted me to put 2x12 LVLs after the whole thing had already been framed. What are you talking about? He said, he pulls out his little book or whatever. This is a fire escape. You gotta be able to withstand 5,000 pounds or whatever. I don't understand where you pulling this out of your ass. And he's like, well, if you got firemen and fire hoses, all this shit trying to go up and put out a fire, it's got to be able to stand the weight. So I'm losing my shit again. And I just being a dumbass or a smart ass, I stood on the porch, so he leaves. I stood on the porch and I took a piece of chalk and I circled my approximate width of stance. And let's say I occupied 2 square feet. So I made all these chalk circles all over that porch. Let's say it came up to 5 by 8, 40 square foot. I'm not doing the math, but let's say it came up to 10 or 12 firemen. And we'll call them 200 pounds apiece, plus their gear. And then I added in the weight of water on a 100-foot hose. And you could not physically get the weight that he was trying to target. You just couldn't get there. There wasn't enough space to get to 5,000 pounds. So I called Dave back again, explained the situation. He comes out there, calls the guy up again, basically tells him to go blow himself. That guy didn't last long. But I had another one, and this Dave was actually the inspector. This was a girl named, I forget her name, it was Phipps. Same thing, porches. Back then you had a 6x6 hollow column. You start at the first floor, put a 6x6 on it, put the second floor on top of it, and you go up 3 floors like that. I think this is probably when he and I kind of had our relationship worked up, because he came out there, I didn't know him. I think he put a stop work order on me too. He did. So he was trying to tell me that the 6x6s had to be solid and they had to be bolted and that dog whatever. He was talking about the weight of the roof. Weight of the roof, and snow load, and hollow columns couldn't handle it. So I had this 3-story porch pretty much demoed. had the roof jacked up with some props to where I could just demo all the floors and hold the roof up. Well, I noticed when I was putting the post in, I had a bottle jack, and I was getting a purchase on the roof to get the post in, and there wasn't any load. What the hell's holding this roof up? Because there wasn't anything. I mean, I had all 3 floors and all the posts out, just these little props. And when I put the bottle jack under there to get the post in, there wasn't any load. So I went up on the roof, or I put a ladder up there, and the pitch of the roof from the center of the house all the way down to the drip edge of the porch was one continuous pitch. And they had standing seam metal roofing that went from the ridge all the way to the drip edge. And that metal was attached to all the horizontal sheeting boards for the house. And then basically, when it got to the edge of the house, created a cantilever. But all that metal was in tension. So that rafter on the cantilever was being held in tension by the full sheet of metal. And just for shits and giggles, I kicked all the props out. 3-story porch, and there's this roof supporting itself with nothing under it. And I took a picture of it. I guess that's why Dave started cutting me some slack and giving me some respect, because I kind of want to say his last name, but he's the chief building supervisor or whatever for Richmond City now. And I showed him the picture. I said, the load you think's on that roof ain't on that roof. Or it might be on the roof, but long story short, I got to use hollow box columns like I've been using for 15, 20 years. I had another guy, his name Porches. He got a building permit. What was that? I can't remember what that guy's name. I think he's dead too. But there's something in the, all this bullshit oversight. When you get a building permit on certain streets that are considered historical landmarks or whatever, the permit for the city automatically gets kicked to the Historical Review Board. Not that they tell the customer that, and not that any revisions the review board makes is on the approved set of plans. So you turn in a permit, or you turn in an application, say what you're going to do. The city says, okay, go ahead and do it, follow 1998's residential building code, and we start building. But then they send the permit application to the Historical Review Board. So we build as prescribed, per code, per permit. This old guy with glasses and a sun visor, he comes out there, what are you doing? Building this porch. You can't do that. Well, yeah, I can. I got a permit. It's right there in the window. He says, well, I'm not with the building department. I'm with the Historical Review Board. Okay. And so I'm putting these pickets on this porch according to code, where you can't put a 4-inch bulb through the pickets. You can't put those pickets like that. What are you talking? I said, it's per code. He said, I don't care what the code is. You got to put them like that. And he points across the street. Across the street they got a Chippendale picket pattern. Got about 8 or 9 inches between the pickets. And I said, I can't do it. I'll never get approval. He said, well, you can't do that. So he shuts the job down. Shit. So the builder guy, the guy that owned the property, he calls me up and he says, what do you do? I said, I don't have a clue what to do. I said, you got to go by the building code. But according to this guy, you got to go by the historical review committee, and they don't match. He said, well, I got to get some renters in this place. I said, I know what to do. I'm such a smart ass. So I built a mock-up. I built a mock-up of the Chippendale pattern railing, which wouldn't pass code. And then I went to Lowe's and I bought some chicken wire. And I stapled the chicken wire over the Chippendale railing. Made it look as ugly as humanly possible, of course. And then went to we appealed the decision, and we had the meeting in front of the 8 architectural review people. And this builder asked me to come and testify, or whatever the hell you call it, which I did. And I was pretty irritated. And, I showed them what we had turned into the county or the city, and I showed them what they were wanting us to do, and I showed them how it wouldn't pass code. And it went up for review, and they had a vote, and it was split 4-4. They had some procedure for resolving the split, and the one guy wanted me to go back and research some more, waste some more time, and see if I could find a historical railing that would match the code. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I said, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. And I showed him, I had a little Polaroid camera, and I showed him a picture, and I handed it to him. I said, I'm going to go up there just like this, and I'm going to nail chicken wire all over that porch so I can not get a 4-inch ball through those pickets. And then I'm going to get my inspection. And you're going to have a chicken wire porch on your historical landmark. And they all passed it around. They looked at each other, and immediately the vote changed from 4-4 to 6-2. So I got to build it the way I wanted again. I don't know how long this video is, but I had a few more stories. But I need to go out that damn job and figure out why the stairs aren't working. Still missing 2 inches somewhere. We got walls and loads that aren't even on the beams out there. Anyway, I wonder why I wake up pissed off every morning. All right, Mom, I'll see you later.